Let me, first of all, thank you very much for inviting me to talk to you tonight. Yahya, thank you. It is dangerous to talk after dinner. So, you know, particularly an academic talking after dinner is really dangerous. I can put all of you to sleep, so I'm gonna do my best not to do that. Now, since I can't be funny and entertaining, I'm going to try to be short and sweet. So we'll see if I can do that. It's not easy for me to do, but I will do my best. When Yahya asked me to talk here, I kind of thought about what should I talk about, and I said, you know, what do I know? Business school dean, we don't know much. But we do know about our own business, which is higher education. So I decided to talk to you about higher education and the changes that have taken place in higher education and are taking place as we speak. This is a market that is changing dramatically, okay? So it has changed dramatically and it's changing dramatically, and it has major implications for the future of this country as well as everywhere else in the world. Some people have been talking about a bubble in higher education loans. Okay, so some people have predicted that will be the next bubble that will burst. And so maybe after tonight, we may be able to have a better idea whether we have a bubble, and if so, whether it will burst. So with that, let me get to my talk. This is a historic kind of look at the cost of higher education. If you look at this, since 1978, you can see that inflation, okay, is relatively tame. 33 years, over 33 years, from a base of 100, the consumer index is at about 350 maybe, and minimum wage is keeping up with it. Wages are keeping up with it. You see the house prices. The house prices went up and then came down with the bubble bursting. And then you see education costs. The next line is educational books and supplies. So those of you who are in printing business, if you are printing educational books, you have done a great had a great run, okay? The prices have gone through the roof. And then the next one is college tuition and fees. Look at that number. I mean, it's just amazing. It is almost 12 times higher today than 1978. Now, what are the causes of this? And if you see, there is no slowing down. This thing is going up, okay? And there is no. This is actually the inflation, and this is higher than healthcare inflation, okay? So let's look at some of the causes. And I don't want to bore you, but just briefly, trends in the way we do teaching and research in the universities. This is various groups of faculty. Now what you see that, to make the long story short, what this tells us that tenure track faculty, which is people like myself, you start as an assistant professor, you get your PhD, start as an assistant professor, 5, 6 years later, 7 years later, you become associate professor, you get tenure. Tenure means lifetime employment guarantee, more or less. Okay, once you have tenure, hardworking people continue to work very hard and they become full professors. Not so hardworking people don't work as hard and they stay as associate professors the rest of their careers. But bottom line is, this is the expensive component of education, tenure track faculty. And you have seen a dramatic decline since 1975. Today, only close to 17% of the faculty in a university is tenure track. Okay? A significant decline from almost 29% in 75 down to 17%. And it is continuing to decline. Full-time, non-tenure track faculty is basically every faculty that works. They may have PhDs or not, full-time, but they do not have tenure. You can fire them. Okay? That's the distinction. That group has increased and stabilized. The group that went up the most, it's now 41% of faculty in a university is the part-time faculty. That's you folks working in industry and coming and helping us to teach our students, up to 41%. So, if you think about it, probably somewhere around 20-25% of the delivery is done by professionals that are working in industry and coming back and helping us. And then finally, graduate students at last, that's kind of stable. Now, why are we seeing this? We are seeing this because part-time faculty is significantly cheaper than full-time faculty and significantly cheaper than tenure track faculty. And so slowly but surely we are eliminating tenure. Everybody, including myself, there are lots of people complaining about tenure because that means lifetime employment. That means maybe you're not working very hard and so on and so forth. Well, believe me, there are lots of people with tenure that work very, very hard. And at UTD, at my school, we don't really have problem of people slacking off. We have ways of making sure they are working. So even if they have lifetime employment guarantee, we make them work. So that's not a problem, but the costs are a problem, and our numbers are coming down. We are kind of becoming rarer. Observations. Part-time faculty has historically been, since 75, we have seen, they have been an important part, and they have now become a bigger part of what we do. And accreditation agencies that accredit higher education institutions recognize that, and they have made changes in the accreditation standards to accommodate that. AACSB accredits business schools. They have changed their definition of a faculty participating faculty. Now, part-time faculty can be participating. That makes it easier for us to hire part-time faculty. In the past, we could not hire as many part-time faculty. The accrediting agency would come and take our accreditation away. So the accrediting agencies are accommodating the trend. Significant cost leverage. Part-time faculty to full-time faculty, tenure track faculty, 7-to-1, 10-to-1 in terms of leverage, cost. So, it's 10 times cheaper to employ, to teach, okay? Just to teach, not research. To teach, it could be as much as 10 times cheaper to hire a part-time faculty than a full-time faculty. The good thing about part-time faculty is that they have something that we don't have. Us, we spend all of our lives in academia. We are good at some things, but a lot of us don't have enough practical experience. And students need this, particularly in professional disciplines like business. Students need to have access to industry. So part-time faculty is indeed, in my field particularly, raises the quality of education. So it's not a bad thing necessarily. You just have to make sure that the numbers are balanced. So they also provide a bridge to industry. They teach us, the faculty, as well. So I think that it's not a bad thing to have part-time faculty, and it's not a bad thing that their numbers have gone up. why are we seeing these trends? Public support for higher education has come down very significantly. Today, many public universities have 10%, 15% of their annual budget come from the state. Okay? This number 20 years ago was 50%. 30, 40 years ago, this number was 70, 80%. So we have been slowly privatizing public universities. So this is neither good nor bad. Okay? It has advantages of doing. We have advantages because of this. We also have disadvantages, but it's just a fact. What have we done during this last 20, 30 years is that we've taken, once the subsidy is gone, if the public sector is not subsidizing the university has to raise its tuition and fees. So the tuition and fees that went through the roof, okay, was partially due to public support going away. Okay? At 78, people at UT Dallas or another UT campus could go there for $300-400 a semester. It is at UTD today $6,000 a semester. Okay? Why? Partially the public support has come down, and partially there has been an inflation in tenure track faculty numbers. So it's not just only public support coming down, it's also the fact that there is a significant inflation in education, higher education as well. Now, what has this done? This has basically permitted, which is basically we are creating a market, a real market. And it has given an opportunity for-profit organizations to make a buck. In the past, if UTD's tuition was $500, they could not compete. They could not make money. But now that we are $6,000, they can come in, and for $6,000, okay, their education costs are significantly lower than ours. They don't hire tenure track faculty. They are using part-time professional faculty, which I said is 7-to-1 to 10-to-1 cheaper. That's what they are using, so they can actually make good money. And sure enough, there has been a tremendous increase in the, and I will show you next slide, in the for-profit sector. Numbers of students enrolled in for-profit sector universities. The other distance learning, they utilize distance learning. These universities particularly do. And the tuition cost between public and private is disappearing, and the competitive market is developing, and student loans are going up rapidly, okay? Because people cannot afford anymore to support their kids. They cannot pay, you know, if it was $600 a semester, I could take care of it without borrowing. Now, if it is $6,000, you let the kid borrow first, subsidized by the government, and then you borrow because that's not enough for the kid to go to school. So the families as well as kids are now basically borrowing money to go to college. This is a slide that shows the enrollment growth in public, private, and private for-profit. As you can see, there has only been about 25–30% growth in the last decade in the enrollments of public universities as well as private universities that are non-profit, schools like SMU. Not much growth, population similar to population growth. Look at the enrollments in private for-profit, 350% increase. It went from 100 base at 2000 to 450. Okay? So huge increase in the for-profits. This is a little messy slide, but what it says is that the cost of public education in the last decade, okay, went up roughly 50% for public universities, went up about 20-25% for private universities that are nonprofit, and then for-profit privates, it stayed constant. But it first went up and then come down. Okay? So they were pricing, and then all of a sudden the realities of market hit, they have to decline their price. And they are positioned somewhere between public and private institutions. This is student loan debt. If you look at it, it's almost $1 trillion today. And that's, at 2003, it was 250 billion. So there has been a very significant increase. To put this in perspective, total credit card debt in the United States is slightly less than this. And the total household debt is about 12 trillion. So this is a significant amount of debt for higher education. And this tells us that today, well, this is 2010 data, 50% of students in public universities are getting loans, 63% in private nonprofits, 86% in private for-profits. So the for-profits are basically living on money that the students borrow from government. This student loan debt, 20% of the population in U.S., households in U.S. have student loan debt. I'm part of the 20%. When my son went to college, I borrowed, I couldn't afford it, right? So I'm still paying. 20% of the households have this. Those households that have student debt, student loan debt average is $24,000. Total debt for those households is $83,000. Consumer debt basically is the difference between mortgage and total debt. So you are looking at house mortgage being roughly $52,000, student loans being roughly $24,000. That's a significant chunk of money to be owing for higher education. Okay? Non-student borrowers, their debt is lower. They only owe $66,000 on average, and the difference is basically the student loans. Their mortgage is similar, $1,000 difference. This 20%, 90% of the loans are made by federal government. 60% of borrowers are over age 30. Okay? That's kind of misleading because it includes people like us who borrow for our kids. Minimum monthly payment, $190. Median monthly earnings, $2,500. Meaning, it's kind of significant. If you are earning $2,500 and paying $200 in loan back, it is significant. Now, it's skewed. There are a lot of people that owe huge amounts of money. Of course, those that go to medical school owe lots of money. 0.5% of the households owe more than $200,000 in student debt. 3% owes more than $100,000 in student debt. 25% is greater than $29,000. The last one there is wrong. The last 25% should be less than $5,977. So the bottom 25% owes less than $6,000. Default rates. So what is it costing us the taxpayers, okay? Because these are now all federally granted, 90% plus federal loans. 8.8% of loans were in the first quarter of 2012, they were 120 days past due. Projected lifetime default rate is 23.3% for subsidized Stafford loans. That's basically the loans that for lower income people, and they don't pay until they finish college. Less 16.6% default rate for unsubsidized higher income group, and then 9.7% for plus loans, that's the parents borrowing. Fiscal impact. Actually, if you look at the federal budget, the government reports making money off student loans. For 2011, in the budget, net cost is a minus $47 billion. The government says, I'm making $47 billion on these loans. It's a good deal. I should give money away more. Well, it's kind of misleading because they're not taking into account a lot of the cost that's involved in doing this, and they're not taking into account the risk. So the fair estimate, this is not COB, this is Congressional Budget Office, CBO, my assistant reversed OMB. Their estimate is that the real cost is about 11% of the amount that we are lending. And so for 2013, expected lending is $121 billion, cost is $13.3 billion, additional $3 billion from consolidation loans. So we are looking at $16, $17 billion for the year 2013, the cost to the government of all these loans that we are giving out. And, that's roughly 0.5% of the federal budget. So what does it all tell us? It tells us that there is a real cost to the government. It's not very significant if you think about the good it does, because if somebody gets a higher education, their lifetime income goes up significantly, tax revenues go up. I mean, there is lots of societal good. So you can justify doing this program, but you have to be careful because the people that are borrowing, there is a real cost there. If you look at their mortgage payments, debt versus their education debt, okay, that is half of mortgage. So we are getting to the point where actually people will not be able to afford it. Okay, so what does it tell us? Us in the academia had better get efficient because we won't be able to charge as much as we have been charging you. No more gouging. Soon. Thank you very much.